Okay, good afternoon. I am Anto Budiarjo. Welcome to Monday Live. This is something that we do every Monday afternoon to try and figure out the future for smarter buildings. It's great to have you with us. In case you're wondering who we are, our profiles are listed on mondaylive.org. And just to point out that views expressed here in this hour are personal, not of any company or organization. And let's do post questions and comments and chat on the Zoom chat. It always makes it much more interactive and interesting. If you want anything that's on this deck, you'll find this deck on mondaylive.org as well. So this being March, we are spending the month talking about are we ready? We being the industry. So we're going to continue that conversation today. And the agenda, as always, news and trends chit chat, and then we'll talk about AI readiness. And our focus today is on the workforce. Is our workforce AI ready? This is obviously a very important question. Looking forward to the discussion on that. But before that, I'm going to hand it over to automatedbuildings.com.
Thanks, Anto. Right up in the top left-hand corner there, we still have Women's Month going on at Automated Buildings. Suha has identified that she's on to the next stage, which is the IoT Day, and she's put together a gathering of ladies that are involved in the IoT AI industry, and there's a large number of them. Some of their posts are extremely interesting, so I'd recommend that you kind of follow that through, and maybe follow through that she's recruiting members for this year's IoT Day. IoT Day is just a day that they kind of created to try and take somebody from outside of our industry and try and explain to them why we talk funny and what we're really talking about, and how all some of these pieces. It's a great exercise for us. Give your elevator speech to somebody and see if they can understand what it is you actually do. We also have the summary from last Monday's live. Are buildings AI ready? I think that was a good session, and I think again AI did a great job of capturing the essence of that. The one that just got posted last Monday was the our AHR Expo presentation on Wednesday, real examples, and that's been well received by the industry, because there's a lot of interesting things there that we kind of think of the active uses of AI, but there's a whole bunch of passive uses to just do what our ordinary job. We can do our ordinary job that we've been doing for years a lot better with AI, and I think that's the essence of that. What came out of that with Brad and the Cochrane folks. Down at the bottom there, we've got Kimon. He had this Black Box Conspire. I think it's that's a real good article, and he's basically sharing all of his interviews that he had with Scale. So the Scale of the event, and that's great. And he's even off to another event in Baltimore, I believe it is, and mapping successful digital twins and AIs in modern facilities. So it's good to see that we're getting our message, I wouldn't say outside of the industry, but over into the edges of the industry, into the facility management folks. So that's great. I came across this article, Smart Building Sector Transformation by Agentic AI. Did I get that right? And it's interesting that there's a lot of folks looking at this to create the democracy of these agents. I think when we started, the naive folks sort of thought AI was like one thing, and then we kind of redefined it that no, it's a tool, and then it's a tool in the hands of many. And as the agents come, I think it gets into the hands of even more. And then we even have another level of that, where we have the home hobbyists actually building their own agents and having their own language models. So I think AI, in a matter of the last few months, has slipped from being a thing in the clouds to being tools that everybody is using and trying to figure out how they can best use these tools. And then I came across the one below it, which is this newsletter, AI Agent. And the one that really caught me was the 2025 is the year of AI agents. And it describes that how something like automated buildings could be completely managed and written by AIs. And my first thing was, well, okay, well, this is the end of automated buildings. But then it dawned on me as there's going to be a great need to catalog and sort all of these AI agents, especially for our industry, as we are. So it's interesting times for sure. Back to you, Anto.
Yes, what's sort of interesting, Ken, is that it clearly is an increasing amount of activity, a lot of news, a lot of things, because you're using smaller and smaller fonts every week. So that's a good sign um, that you're having to report so much. So great, thank you.
Yeah.
The link board, as always, I've actually updated some of the links just in case they were broken, you were using it. Any other thoughts or any other news going on in the industry, in your worlds this past week? Hearing nothing, let us continue. So are we AI ready? So we've been talking about this for the month of March. In our first week, we talked about what does AI ready actually mean, which was an interesting conversation. The following week, which is last week, we talked about the AI readiness of buildings themselves. Sort of just noting that a building that's not AI ready is different from the building that's AI ready because of what it potentially can do for tenants and people. So the question that we want to pose and discuss today is our workforce AI ready? So I went to AI, of course, because that's what you do these days, and I asked it to make me a couple of images, which it did. And this is its view of what AI a non-AI ready workforce is. And it's very strange because they have people, sitting on filing cabinets, and I'm not quite sure what that's all about, but never mind. That's a distraction. Um, but really, so what we're talking about is AI isn't replacing workers. It's really AI ready workers that's going to be replacing those who are not. Right? So AI readiness is an attribute of workers going forward. This is kind of the premise here. Um, and that's kind of really where we want to have this discussion. So I'm going to stop my share and gonna just open it up to the floor. Any immediate thoughts about how ready our workforce is in this industry?
I think they're getting ready. It would be my perception, and that comes from what the reactions we got out of Orlando. I think we had about 30, 40 folks out to that session on Wednesday, which everybody knows is a tough day to drag a crowd out. And there was a lot of interest, and there's been a lot of interest in the posts as well. And the uniqueness and the way our workforce is using AI completely surprises me for things I would have never thought of. Every day, if I had somebody using it for something, never even crossed my mind, I would use it for that. And yeah, so I think I would answer the question, are we ready? No, but there's a good portion of our workforce that realizes they need to get ready. The other thing is in our Wednesday call, Anno mentioned that his company is putting a lot of stock in that. And when they're interviewing people, if you're not AI ready, you better not apply for the job, because that's part of what they're expecting you to do. And in fact, probably your way to win the way into an interview is to impress them with your AI knowledge.
Yeah, unfortunately, he's not with us. Anna's not with us today.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
you had a good
I'll
discussion
be
on that.
honest, from where I'm sitting, I've had little need, if you will, because I don't speak for the development side of our business. I'm basically distributing the ISMA products into the U.S. market, and so AI tools have really been very minimal um, impact, to the best of my knowledge. To Ken's point, that's not to say that um, there are ways in which AI could help me do what I'm doing that I'm not even aware of. So that's a distinct possibility. So I'm not going to argue it one way or the other, but I'm not aware of anything specific. Now, on the development side, I do think that most firms, whether using Anno's example as one of them, and Jim's firm as another, I do think if you also, for that matter, you right, your organization, everyone on this call who's doing development is already got toes and maybe feet and entire legs in the AI pond. Okay, so is it fair for us to assume that that is also true of the firms that we all know of, particularly the big name firms that aren't on this call? Okay, so be interesting to see what you all think in that regard. Um, but that's one aspect of it. Now, what about the people who work for building owners, facility engineers? To what degree are they, using AI or even thinking that could help in what they do? Um, and then what about the systems integrators and distributors who are the primary channel um, organizations? To what degree are they participating? So if any of those are on today's call, it was great to hear them weigh in as to in what ways they are using AI. But I feel like we need to somehow do some more research or investigation and take advantage of our contacts and go out and see if we can't gather some relevant information in those other areas. So it's not just the supplier side that we feels like we're focusing on. What about the distribution, the channel side, as well as the end user side? How do we gather insights into what may be going on there? My open question to the panel here.
Yeah, I agree with those points, Steve. If I look at my own development organization, people are dabbling with AI now on the development side. I'd say people in our marketing organization have embraced AI as a tool for content creation and just cleaning up documents. So I think that's certainly been done. I don't see a lot of evidence of my customers or even people in the channel doing anything more than dabbling with AI, potentially for a little Marcom stuff, but I haven't seen a lot of action yet. I do think there's a lot of upside to come. And I think it depends on temperament. Once again, certain personality types are stuck in their old ways and won't see any value. But I think as we get the generational change that's sweeping the industry, that more and more AI will sweep in with that.
I concur with that. That's where I'm seeing the greatest changes is in our consulting company, the SES. It's the young. They have quite an array of young folks in there their organization, and it's pushing up from the bottom. They're finding that that's an easy way to do stuff, and they're bringing that forward as to attract attention to themselves. So I think we're seeing the growth of a lot of organizations, and that probably isolates a lot of folks that don't have those young people who are fluent in this to push them on and egg them on. I think that's the real growth, healthy growth situation, is when we can have somebody who well understands the AI talking to somebody who well understands our process. And typically that seems to be, right at this point, seems to be balanced on the millenniums, or what we call them, the millennium elders, which and what they're finding is that because we still need to find it, make it useful, I guess, is not just bring in AI. We have to take a task that we're doing now and do it better with AI. And if they can internalize, I think that seems to work quite well. The other thing that's happening here too is, of course, we're coming across the floor as technology companies, and we're all evolving to technology companies. And as soon as we touch the technology companies, as soon as we touch the Linux people, and as soon as we touch the scale people, their heads are deep in all of this, and so it's falling all over us, and we're finding out all kinds of new opportunities. So there's a lot of transition going on, and the trend in that industry to the agenic revolution that is occurring, the whole idea that everything will become an agent, is a pretty big head shake. So I think we have to start thinking a little bit more about that.
And everything about AI still has a little bit of a flavor of being very nerdy and techie.
Yep.
And and it's interesting because it being around, y'all know I've got kids that are in the 30s, and they're in their 30s, and I've also got a kid that's 13, and they're kind of like, they're not techies, right? The teacher and engineer, student, and AI really hasn't hit their radar yet. It's interesting, even on my Mac, I just got this button up here that is the Apple Intelligence button. That was this weekend that showed up. So it's like the Apple Intelligence ads have been on TV for a while, but people that are using Apple have not had AI as part of their experience. But as of last weekend, they now do. So it is kind of interesting. But the people who are techie, to the points that have been made, are already really deep into this and moving towards that whole agentic or agent IEC, whatever, how we're supposed to say it.
I'm sorry.
But that notion,
Agentic.
Agentic.
I think that notion is going to help people get their heads around, what it was that the CEO of Microsoft said when he said that SaaS is dead, and the new model is agentic AI sitting on top of federated data sets. Boom, head exploding. People can't figure out what the heck that means to their world. But more and more people will start to get their head around that. It's not large language model AI, it's agentic AI. And that'll get people curious. They'll dig into that, and more and more people will start to, again, get their head around how AI can actually apply to their life, to their business. But we're still in early days, it seems.
David, do you have a view on this? People that you tend to hang out with, is that workforce going up the learning curve on AI? What are your thoughts?
I think, let me share my screen. This is now a couple years old, but this data is originally from McKinsey, And then the red rectangles I put in myself, because those have something to do with real estate and construction. And if you lose me, I'm going into the Union Station right now in Chicago. So forgive me if I drop off here. But when you look at it, it's really office and administrative support, legal, architecture and engineering can certainly be impacted. But when you get to the bottom, building grounds, cleaning and maintenance, installation, maintenance and repair, not so much. So I think it's interesting. The way AI is, in my opinion, going to most greatly impact the industry is being able to redeploy humans to do good human things and leveraging AI to do things that are busy work wherever possible. And I see a massive change in the real estate industry already, using tools to vet tenants for multifamily before they come in to try to stop fraud from happening. And AI is being used to generate different massing combinations, for new projects. But I don't see it yet coming in really strongly in the construction side of things yet. I've seen some companies claim to do AI with supply chain, but I'm not convinced. And I think there's a massive opportunity, but I also don't think there's necessarily enough data for AI tools to actually do real work in many cases. And the companies that have structured data are going to completely move ahead and outperform, and those that don't have structured data will not perform nearly as well. So I have to get off the train. We just got to this stop here. So I'm going to switch to my phone and sign off from the laptop here. I hope this helps though.
Thank you, David.
Yep. Yeah, I'm closing up.
It does. Yeah, it does make me sort of wonder, what does AI ready workforce mean? Does it mean that it's a workforce that's doing the work, like programming, logic or whatever, using AI? Or is it that the workforce just understands how AI works and is using it for writing emails, doing budgets, doing sort of other tasks, other sort of business tasks? Because I would have thought that somebody that is familiar with AI and is comfortable with using it would in many ways be AI ready, because they understand how to interact with it, as opposed to actually using it for something useful like configuring a VAV or something. Anybody want to comment on that?
Well, I
No?
would say that when you look at you guys hear me all right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So if I'm thinking about a building technician, whether they're coming from a systems integrator or they're working for a facilities department, the amount of time they spend during the day doing business related tasks, I would argue, is quite small, right? Relative to the time they spend dealing with physical issues in the building itself, whether it's the control system or the mechanical system, literally walking around the facility to where the issues are and involving themselves in that regard. So interestingly, what David Welch just showed us in that diagram, the percentage of people doing repair type activity was down around 4%, if I recall the number.
Very small, yeah.
That makes sense to me logically when I think of the kind of work that a technician does. So if just, thinking outside the box a little bit here, if we got to the point where a technician could say, I need a program that does the following, right? And it was able to write it in the language of the controller that of the brand that he happens to have. That would be potentially a game changer, right? In many regards, you could either, whether it's the technician doing it that works for a systems integrator, or a technician doing it that is part of the facilities team from an building owner's perspective. I'm not sure what that would look like to get to that point, but in terms of how things work today, I would say that the use of AI, that level in the organization, is going to be pretty small, as David was arguing, based on what AI is capable of doing today. So as you move up the organizational ladder to management, in terms of how they manage their staff, how many people do I need to do this project where it includes all this kind of work, right? Do workflow analysis. I could see AI being effective in that regard. So as you move, like I said, as you move up the organizational ladder, you start talking about the types of work that those individuals are doing versus the ones that are down doing the work in the building itself. I think, yeah, I could see where the AI tools would be very helpful. And then, of course, on the financial side, we've already basically said that's like table stakes, that everybody's going to be, if they're not doing it, they're going to be doing it, right? So that all that kind of an analysis. So that's my 2 cents for now, is that at the level that we're talking about, all the way down to the controller level, something needs to happen there to make it a lot more valuable to an individual technician.
I guess what I'm
Yes, no.
trying to what I was trying to sort of say is that I've seen several people that I've been working with over the past few weeks talking about AI, and we'd get on our Zoom and they'll say, you know, help me use AI, and I'd bring up ChatGPT, and there's that prompt, right? And they would bring up ChatGPT and that prompt, and I'll say, okay, go, ask it to do something, and usually, and I was the same when I started, they have absolutely no idea what to type. Absolutely no idea what to type. Right? And then they do things like, hey, can you please help me do this kind of a thing, typing. So to me, that's them learning how to use AI. And I would have thought that it's better to do those kinds of things on menial tasks, so that when you actually get to real important tasks, you actually know how the system works. That's what I mean about sort of just using AI in a sort of day-to-day basis, not necessarily on important parts, just knowing how to use it. Tracy, you've gone through that journey, because I would imagine that at some point you didn't know what to type in either.
Didn't say that again. Didn't know what was?
You didn't know what to type, what to put on the prompt. There's this prompt.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm still playing catch up here. Keep going, then I'll jump in.
Well, the concept of a blinking cursor is intimidating.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
And with ChatGPT, or with this new Apple Intelligence button that I've got up here, that's what you get, is a blinking cursor. And oh my gosh, you have flashbacks to the 80s. It's like, what do I put in there? And that's, so I'm agreeing, Anto, with, that's what I was describing earlier, of like, my kids, they don't know what to do with AI yet, because it hasn't been part of their mainstream whatever. And that damn blinking cursor is intimidating.
I don't think the cursor is going to be the issue, right? In a few years, it will be full on dedicated AI interacting, verbally or otherwise. So I think as this matures, this gets a whole lot easier than what we think it might be, even for a wider audience doing more things. So
And that's the point of the learning curve, is that we're still in for people to know what to do with the blinking cursor. And once they do, it's like, holy cow. But and that's where I think that the workforce will very quickly adopt, figure out how to use this tool. But it's hard to point to tons and tons of evidence of how it's impacted our workforce yet.
So Danielle was on chat, was sort of suggesting she can bring a different perspective, so I brought her on. So Danielle, the floor is yours.
I don't know if it's so different, because I think that a lot of you guys had good points. One thing that I've come across a lot, just with my psychology background and working with people so much, is I'm sure many of you guys have heard of the book Thinking Fast and Slow by Kahneman. It's this idea that most of our lives we spend without actually thinking. It's sort of this habitual thinking. We go through the process. That's thinking fast, and rely on our habits, and rely on intuition, and rely on really fast judgment making. And this slow thinking is this idea that it's like when you're presented with the blinking light, that requires the slow thinking process, and it really is intimidating. And so, as a broad answer to the question of is the workforce ready, I think I agree that we're not, because most of our work life is spent in this habitual thinking process, which is why the status quo is so hard to break. No one stops and thinks, why am I doing this? And while we might have a fun button on our Apple or on our phone that says, hey, use AI, we don't really know how. And that forces us to come out of this fast thinking process and go into slow thinking, which isn't productive. We don't get as much done. We have to learn how to think that way. So what I suspect is going to change that is, as we get more and more vendors and companies who are willing to use AI and build it into an existing process. And having those leaders, I mean, it's kind of like, I don't know if anybody's done research on how cults grow, but I mean, nothing like automated buildings to cults, right? But a cult grows because they have very influential people that come up with something that's easy to adapt to and that's really easy to grab onto. And it's this mantra that if you don't know how to think for yourself, or you're too busy, or you're distracted, or you're in a low spot in your life, you can hold on to this mantra and it gets you through this rough patch. So I kind of feel like we're going to see more companies growing up that they build this mantra of, we're going to use AI, it's going to be better. And we have these powerful, authoritative companies that really drive the AI adoption.
Actually, doesn't the agentic sort of provide a summary of what somebody who had an idea then thought they would use AI? So they kind of package it all, and you just simply click on this agent and it comes to you. And so you're not looking at the blinking cursor. It's kind of made, so it's made just what you just said there, but it took all of those thoughts and put their thoughts on and then made it into a thing. And so the thing looks much to us like a workforce person,
Yep.
but it's an agent.
Yeah, and they actually call them AI workers in a lot of places I've looked at. They don't call it agentic AI. They say, if you can hire this AI worker for $2,000 a month or whatever, $20 a month in some places, versus hiring a person. And the difference with an agent versus maybe a chat GPT model is the agent doesn't need you to give it input. So if it's built right, it takes its input and then it gives you an output. So it takes an action, and often it's an email. So right now I have an agent that scrubs the internet for any relevant news that I want, so that I don't have to go to my own websites. And then I get an email in the morning from my agent, so I don't have to talk to it ever. It already knows what I want.
I just posted a link there that shows how a group of agents can then start to create a workforce.
Mhm.
So yeah, thanks for saying all those words that I didn't really understand, Danielle.
It's all
Well,
input
anytime.
and output, right? From one
Right.
to
Yeah.
the next to the next. Yep.
I have a
Yeah.
different point of view I'd like to bring in, which is that I think that a lot of what you're going to see is the incumbents who already are providing tools for whatever field, incorporating AI into their products in a way that improves those products, but nobody's actually going to say it's AI or know that it's AI, right? And I think that there's a propensity for people that control a certain market share, especially with software, to want to hang on to that. And they will innovate with these technologies. And if AI is used for coding, you're not going to know about it. And if AI is used in processing information, you're not going to know about it. The value that that vendor is bringing is going to improve as a result of AI. And you as the workforce will benefit from that without having to click on anything.
But-
That's my view of the intermediate future.
But I
With that-
totally agree with that, but I think the evolving thing that's happening is what I call the small language model. And in fact, that we can actually take one of these agents and make it prejudiced as heck and it make it sound just like one of us.
Right.
You know, so I believe, and when you actually engage that agent, you understand that it isn't looking at everything. It's only looking at the chiller, or it's only looking at the boiler or what. So it has a controlled language model. And I think Danielle probably has more experience in that.
Yeah, yeah, exactly like you said. Large language models have access to whatever they need, but you as a user have to give it context, and context is key. AI has no idea what it's doing without context, and so what agents are given is they're already pre-programmed with context, and that's because they have limited input, or they have limited actions. So we're just pre-programming the agentic AI with the context.
I noted I was watching the news over the weekend, and there's a big event going on in Barcelona right now, the World Mobile World Congress. That's what it's called. It's kind of the European version of CES. It's all about mobile phones. And the theme of the whole conference, and what the whole conference everybody's talking about, is agentic AI. Because, and just the reason I'm bringing it up is that it's a mobile conference. It's a mobile trade show.
Mhm.
Right? So that's how we're going to interact. The reason why they're doing it is the way we're interacting with the AI, with the agentic AI, is through mobile phones. Right?
That's
Which
interesting because your phone can get audio signals, it can get video signal, like all of this input. I think the building community or controls community as a whole keeps thinking the input has to be a data from a BMS. But you think about input, I mean, we can take a picture of something and the AI can read it. So why can't we, or, record an audio recording of why does my fan sound like this? And eventually that's going to turn into a solution.
It's interesting.
that's a sort of an agentic sort of application that you can just take your phone and call on your agent AI and say, why does this equipment sound like this?
Yeah.
Because it sure can't connect to the BAS. Because Steve hasn't fixed that yet.
Yeah.
By the way, Danielle, does this mean we're part of the same cult?
Yes, it does. But yours isn't on camera.
Yeah.
It is now.
It's camera shy.
Steve's
right.
got the wrong plant in his background. I was just going to point that
Yeah,
out.
what can I tell you? I'm an outlier.
So Keith, just so you join us, what do you think AI ready workforce is all about?
With the workforce,
Yes.
yeah, I think it's a force multiplier. That's for sure. And it also, there's another component that's extremely important when it relates to workforce, and that's it can fill the talent gap as like a co-pilot. So the fact is, I mean, we all know this, that there's not a lot of, kids going into HVAC and controls and stuff. It's just not a sexy, it's not a sexy market. It's not, up at the top of the list. I know I couldn't even get my kids to go into it. They're like, I don't want to work with you, So I think we're not going to be able to survive and keep the same level of service to our customers unless we supplement the new workforce with some AI technology as a force multiplier and co-pilot.
But so with respect to the workforce that currently exists in this industry right now, how AI ready do you think they are? What is the spread? Obviously, they're not all AI ready.
I think it's age dependent. I mean, I think the younger people, no matter what area of functionality they play a role in, if they're young and they're used to consuming AI and apps, I think they're more able and willing to engage with AI technologies for, particularly in the way of like, ChatGPT and just, again, a co-pilot kind of scenario. But that doesn't mean that that's not changing, because also, ChatGPT engagement by, us older folks has kind of indoctrinated us into it. So I think the workforce across multiple ages is pretty well ready to adopt AI technologies to help.
I think the agentic society, democracy, as some people are calling it, is going to be a lot easier for old folks like us to adapt, because they sort of look like apps. And so we'll actually click on an agent, and it'll do something for us that we want to do. For example, explain the complete workings of a chiller, and it'll have a small language model that will have all of the information that is needed about that chiller. And if it needs extra information about a pump, it'll reach out to an agent for the pump. And I think in those little pieces, it also allows us the one fear, and Kimon has been talking about this, the fear of these devices actually sabotaging us all and taking over and starting talking machine language, and we're out of the loop. I think in the fact the agents, the agentic world is manageable. They've got those little pieces, and they're virtually physical pieces that we can assemble or pretend we're in control, I think, which would typically we could quickly identify that it is the chiller agent that is giving us bad information. And so therefore it'll give us a bit of a control of how this all might work. My humble opinion.
Yeah, we still have a lot of irrational fear out there. Like, I mean, Danielle can tell you, like, I'm kind of getting a little bit like terse with my responses when customers, I mean, just as recent as this morning, what I do to address concerns that, your AI is going to blow my RTU up or my chiller up, and I'm like, that's about as rational as thinking that when you adjust your set point or settings in your home that you're going to blow your HVAC unit up. Like, it just doesn't happen. It's not a proper scenario. There's safety limits, mechanical safeties on there. There's safeties in the software. There's safety in the agent. So we've got redundant safeties to prevent this. I know we have to address it because it's still perceived as an issue, but when it comes down to it, it's really not. It's a false narrative. So I think the more people engage and get used to actually using AI, particularly in control of, sometimes mission critical HVAC equipment, that those irrational fears will go away. And then along with that, those fears of it taking over, I mean, I think it's just with youth, we're going to get kind of indoctrinated indoctrinated with the using AI. It'll be casual, just like a calculator.
So Ken mentioned earlier that he he was thinking along the lines of agentic AI as being, we think of them just like an application. I would actually like to propose that I'd like to think of an agent that I'm chatting with as just being another person.
Sure.
Right? In other words, hey Keith, can you look into that? You as Keith would do it. And so would an AI agent call Keith.
I think
So
that
isn't that
the
a better way of thinking about it?
difference there, Anto, is that not all agents have a communication.
Okay.
So for example, if you had an agent that was based off of a large language model and it was trained to talk to you, that could be a reasonable component. But that might be its only purpose. So what Ken is saying is an agent does one specific task. And when you have 20 agents working together, then they become a whole system. But not all agents have the ability to access a large language model and have communication. They would be a source for a holistic view of those agents. You'd have a supervisory agent that would then go in and pull resources for you that you would talk to. But agents are single applications. And that's kind of that democracy of the agents that Ken was talking about.
Okay.
I
Correct.
want to
No, Brian. No, Brian, I'm not a fan of that movie, but I did watch it.
I want to go back to, I'm not sure who said it, if it was Jim or who now, but where you just don't even realize that AI, it's just part of what's going on, right? It's not recognized as a separate thing. If you take that thinking one step further, where AI is fully integrated into whatever the operating system of the platform happens to be, and we need to think of an operating system more than what's underneath, running your laptop or your phone. Think of it as the overall world that you're dealing with at the time. I just think that's all going to be blended, and the way that we look at AI is actually going to go away in the sense that it's a separate thing.
Yeah.
It's just the software. We're now just talking with the software. The software happens to be able to learn and do all kinds of intelligent things that software never could quite do before, but now it can. Right?
So at that point, the building becomes intelligent, or the piece of
Yeah.
equipment becomes intelligent because it has those components in them.
The software that's running the building that is fully integrated, and it's all part of the building OS, if you will. And it can communicate to HVAC or lighting or elevators or smart toilets or whatever. And it's pulling data and information from whatever it needs to make its decisions and run more efficiently, right?
And talk to us humans as and when necessary.
Yep.
I think, yeah, that's a big piece, is that we can communicate with it. But the smart toilets, we would want to talk to as a agent, I think. It'd be an agent for all the smart toilets and having all of those features. One thing I wanted to point out is I have a Google phone, and when I bought it, basically the agent was sort of one of the selling parts, that it was integrated into the phone. And then basically whatever was on the phone or phone had access to, it was able to access. And one of the big excitements for me was my email, because I have a couple 100,000 emails, that I could actually ask AI to go look at my emails. And so all of a sudden, I sort of created a small or large, medium-sized language model that it could access. And I keep thinking about that as a model for what our edge devices should evolve to. And I think, I keep saying this, I think this is the greatest opportunity our industry has, is to update those old DDC systems and put Linux on top of them, and basically add a language model And there's even uh, there's, there's even agents that build language models and everything. So you basically just kind of it's sort of sorting itself out. In my mind, it's not much different than the old DDC industry as we started to pull all these pieces together, and all of a sudden we started getting some stuff that was actually pretty useful. And I think we're just on the verge of that. But I think just because I think we have, it's not so much that AI can understand anything. I think our biggest problem is something maybe Danielle can, is we can't understand what we're doing unless we break it into little pieces. And agents seem to be little pieces that I can understand because they kind of look like apps. And I don't know what all my apps do. My favorite apps, I have no idea how they do it. I'm just amazed they do it.
In the vision that I'm trying to put out there, there are no apps per se, right? It's an all-in-one entity. I mean, we have a little taste of it. If you think, if anyone uses like Alexa or Google to turn lights on or change your temperatures, or like I have my temperatures, lights, and cameras. I don't think of asking Alexa to open the lights app and turn on the lights, or open the camera app and show me the screen. I just say, hey, show me the screen, right? So it handles all that underlying, and whether that's a separate app in separate code or not, I don't know for sure how integrated that becomes into the code.
Neither do
You know
you
what I'm
care.
saying? It's a very subtle difference in the thinking here, but it's all blended is what I guess maybe is another way to describe it.
Like really, Hey Google and Alexa are really early pioneers of agents, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
That would be my description of them.
Yeah, and I mean, you can add to Google or Alexa now schedules or actions, or, if this, then that, if you see motion on the camera and the house is not occupied, send an alarm to the alarm company. Right? That's a really basic functionality, but it can also send me text and, pull up a window on my phone at the same time. It's just a matter of what you sort of allow its imagination to be able to do, or tell it you want it to do at that point.
But it'll also be able to call an agent. When you ask it a question it doesn't know, it could connect you to an agent. Another evolution that I think is important is Google's just announced that Gemini is basically going to, it's basically replacing Google. And so now when you Google, it decides on the complexity of your question, whether it uses Gemini,
Yeah.
or whether it, so I think, so basically agents are going to, they're going to have identity. We're going to learn to love them and like them, and then they'll just become life.
So do equipment and devices, VAVs, handling units, whatever, do they all end up with agents in the future?
Yes.
Say that again, Intel. Do the what end up with it?
The
Individual
equipment,
controllers,
devices,
a VAV
controllers,
controller, rooftop
Edge devices.
yeah, edge devices. Do they all basically end up as having agents in them?
I depending on how far you fast forward, I would flip all of that and say that the AI actually sees an edge device as an asset, as opposed to an asset that's running AI on the edge, right? So an AI agent, call it what, I don't know what to call it, being, would understand and know that, oh, there's an agent, because it's searching, it can look for whatever it wants to find and whatever's open and can communicate. This goes back to connection profiles, right? If it understands how to connect to it, there's an asset that I can get information from or send commands to. So if you flip it, and it's not that the AI is running locally necessarily, although, for buildings that don't need to be or can't be connected, that's a different story. But I'm starting to envision this where everything is sort of flipped on its head a little bit. And systems and edge devices and so forth are being consumed, if you will, by the AI, and it's just all part of the overall system at that point.
You know, Tracy, that's interesting because I mean, you described our new architecture, and I'm being quite serious. We don't even install gateways anymore with our new architecture that we literally just finished up. We install an agent somewhere on the customer's network. That agent is generic. It doesn't do anything. So it performs tasks now. So one of the tasks might be high resolution tasks where we're brute forcing a discovery process, where we're iterating through thousands of points. This thing changes its pace. It doesn't do anything. All the intelligence is up at the cloud. But yeah, we're making that transition. We are no longer installing specialized gateway drivers per piece of equipment on the customer side. We're installing a generic lightweight agent that knows nothing until the mothership tells it what to do.
It's
So
like
the-
a
toward that.
Rosetta
So-
Stone for
Right, but the
systems.
question sort of pushes that piece down to saying, could that exist in every device? Could that exist in a VAV from the factory, from whoever makes the VAV?
I
And
believe it could. Yeah.
Yeah, I
But
mean, the
that could be
VAV is
useful
just
because
publishing what it knows to publish and what it knows to do, right?
And what it
Nothing
needs.
changes from that standpoint even.
Well, the VAV just needs to make itself visible to
Right.
the agent,
Right.
right? And that's where it doesn't happen right now, is that in this, the old way that apps worked was there was a database that was built for business logic. Okay, so that's now the old way. The future is this new sort of software, whether it's agents or AI based, whatever but it's software, but it can go out and find all kinds of different inputs and outputs. The old way was the only thing software could do was go to its dedicated database. And now what we're saying is that this new agent environment can go find, if the VAV has made itself visible, it can be found by the agent. And that's the part where again, this is what the CEO of Microsoft was describing when he said software is dead.
Yes.
Apps
I
are
saw
dead.
that. Yeah.
Apps are dead. The new world is all these devices making themselves visible to this new AI driven software.
Yeah, I'm gonna give this agent a name, Bo, as a building operator. Bo, like Bo Jackson,
Well,
right? So we're now gonna have Bo. I need to know the following, right? And Bo goes out and he talks to whatever the controllers are, and he comes back with the answers. And Bo's my man, or my gal, or my whatever, right?
But he can't get to
Bo's
the
gonna be
controllers.
the
He can't get to the controllers, and he can't get to the edge right now because the VAV has not made itself generically visible.
I agree with you. I'm just saying,
Yep.
Give it a name.
having to have 25
That's the way to
Bo's,
think about it,
I'm
though.
gonna have one. I'm gonna have one Bo, and Bo's gonna take it from there.
Has
And
anyone
so-
used the
so
deep
to-
research? Sorry, go ahead, Anton.
Yeah, we're going to start to wrap this up. So to go
Oh.
back to the question, is the workforce AI ready? If that is what AI is, what you described, Steve, and I think we're very supportive of that, then everybody's AI ready. Because you actually don't have to do anything different.
Right. That's what a couple weeks ago, I think I said, I think we're overthinking this, that the AI
Yeah,
is going
yeah.
to take care of a lot of the problems that we're trying to solve, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be buried into the solution. It won't actually be a problem.
Okay.
I think that's where we're headed.
Yeah, and that's a great place to leave it for this week. All right, thanks all. This has been great. We'll continue this conversation another week. Next week, she's gone. She's no
She's
longer
gone.
there.
You left.
You're on your own. In the
Yeah, you're on
Bo,
your own.
log me off, will you?
Your cult has ended.
Yeah.
All right. Have a great week, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks. See
Hi,
y'all.
guys.
Bye.